NFTs are all the rage right now. Some might even say we're in a bit of a bubble. But there's actually 7 things that are holding NFTs back from going to mainstream adoption. And I'm going to tell you what those are. Are you interested in growing and scaling your business? Welcome to the Silicon Alley Podcast, where you'll hear from entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and top performers on what it truly takes to grow and scale a business. You'll walk away with actionable insights you can apply in your own business and life. Now to William Glass, the CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and your host of the Silicon Alley Podcast. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course your host of Silicon Alley. Today I'm going to be talking about NFTs and the 7 things that we need to solve in order for NFTs to go through mainstream adoption. These are problems that I've personally struggled with myself, and I know that others have as well. So the first challenge are tangible use cases. And I know if you're really into NFTs, you're probably like, well, PFP projects and collections, there are tangible benefits. I'd argue that there's not enough. And what I mean by tangible benefits and tangible use cases are things that look like purchases that people are already making, but in the form of an NFT. If we get to the point where NFTs are seamless, every event ticket you buy, if you get it to that point where people are buying NFTs without realizing it, and then all of a sudden they find out that there's additional value to that thing that they purchased, they're going to want to purchase more of those things in NFT format. And so that, I think, is what we need to figure out are more tangible use cases. I'm trying to explore some of those myself. My mom, she wrote a book NFT that comes with a free signed copy with initial minting of that NFT. So going beyond just the Discord access, future drops, and those types of benefits. But what are the real tangible use cases? Microsoft used this strategy very successfully in terms of rolling out their software. What they do is they put in a new app bundled in with their regular OS, and people started using it and then decided that they wanted it. And they didn't realize necessarily that they needed that product until after they'd started using it. And so I think that's one of the ways that NFTs can go into the mainstream adoption is if we find more tangible use cases that make sense to regular people. The first NFT that I bought was VeeFriends. And the reason I bought it is because I could say, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen with the NFT itself. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around this concept, but I do know how much a conference ticket's worth, and I can price out whether I think there's value in this NFT based on the conference ticket. And if there's upside, that's awesome, but I'm buying this for the conference ticket. So more use cases like that. The second problem are diverse projects. We need to see more projects that cater to different cultures and interests besides just the early adopters of crypto and NFTs. I think you're starting to see that when you look at NBA Top Shots and you start to get sports involved. That brings in a whole other community. But thinking about what are the communities and cultures that exist that aren't into crypto, blockchain, decentralization, and how do you bring those folks in? And imagine if anybody watches The Bachelor or reality TV, you get those communities that are also very strong, but cater to a very different demographic than what's currently interested in using NFTs. And I think that is one way that we can get to more mainstream adoption, is finding people that are interested in NFTs and are kind of on that line, but also getting people that are just hardcore Bachelor fans, or as Gary Vee likes to say, Smurf fans, getting those types of communities that exist already interested in NFTs through projects that are targeted and speak their language. So we need more diverse projects besides just, Bored Ape Yacht Club and another PFP iteration kind of collection. The third thing that is holding NFTs back from going to the mainstream is just how many steps it takes to purchase one. It's so challenging if you're new to this space, you're not already in cryptocurrency, you don't understand and have all these different wallets set up or understand what the different blockchains are. It's really, really hard right now. The friction is high. For example, I had to go from fiat into cryptocurrency because I wasn't sitting on a bunch of cryptocurrency when I wanted to buy my VeeFriend. So I had to figure that out. And at first I had to learn the difference between custodial and non-custodial wallets, because coins that I owned on Robinhood, I couldn't transfer out because that is a custodial wallet currently. And I could buy them on Coinbase in a custodial wallet, but I was able to transfer that to a non-custodial wallet. So first there's a transaction fee to get into crypto that I need to buy the NFT. There's fees, and that's a process trying to figure out which wallet. So there's friction. And then from there, I've got to transfer it to a different wallet. And so I had to learn, well, not all non-custodial wallets can hold NFTs. So then I've got to understand what are these different providers that do, like MetaMask. and then get into that. And so now I've created multiple accounts already, multiple transactions, and there's fees that I'm paying at each level, right? So maybe I got in for a great price on crypto, on Ethereum, but then I'm losing transaction fees, gas fees each time I have to move that just to get to the point where I can buy something or mint an NFT. And you've got to make sure you don't lose passwords, which I will touch on a little bit later. But the process right now is just so difficult. And then I've got to figure out for the first time how to connect that new wallet that I've got to this site that hopefully I trust to go mint an NFT. And I've never done this before. And so there's a ton of friction and so many steps that you've got to be very, very committed in order to buy an NFT. And that is a problem for mainstream adoption. The fourth, which I'm very passionate about, is purchasing in cryptocurrency versus purchasing in fiat. Right now, all the cryptos are still priced in dollars anyway. That's how we look at the value, how we track the value. So whether you believe, whatever your beliefs are, we're still thinking in dollars even when we're looking at crypto. And so that is a problem because most people in mainstream are not into Ethereum or Bitcoin or altcoins or anything like that. They don't understand the fluctuations, right? The fluctuations go up and down, but it doesn't make me feel good. And so if there is a point of sale system where you're able to make a purchase through fiat and have that be the point of entry, you now make it a lot more accessible because I'm still thinking in fiat even when I'm buying as someone new to the space, buying in crypto. And then I've also got to think about at what point did I enter? How many fees did I pay? Try to figure out what am I actually paying for this asset? It's not easy to tell because maybe I paid, when Ethereum was up close to $4,000, maybe that's when I got in and I bought my NFT, but I actually bought Ethereum originally when it was half of that. And I've got to try to figure out how to do all that mental math in my head. That's a problem. If you can just buy NFTs in fiat, this problem goes away. And then you can get people into the cryptocurrencies and they start to understand why it would be valuable to get into them. But making that the first step is to understand and buy cryptocurrency is a barrier to entry. So purchases in fiat opens up NFTs to the mainstream. And I'm already hearing about people that are doing this. They're letting people pay for a digital product on their website, and then they're just airdropping the NFT to them, helping them set up a wallet, which as long as the actors are good, that's okay. But if someone's not, they could capture seed phrases, passwords, and ultimately end up hurting people. So we need to make this easier for people to get in using fiat. The fifth problem are phishing, scams, and just some of the seediness that's going on. Now, part of this is just being such a nascent, new kind of industry. There's a lot of people that flock to this. It's anonymous, which has its benefits in certain aspects, but also has a downside in terms of bad actors being able to proliferate throughout the system and not being easy to identify who those people are. And so if you look at all of the phishing scams, there's a lot of different Twitter threads of people that are very into this space. They understand the security and were phished, scammed out of their really expensive NFTs, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of NFTs in cryptocurrency. And so this stuff is happening. And part of it, to me, I believe, is Discord has a lot of benefits. There's a lot of cool things that you can do. But also Discord is not a mainstream platform today. Now, there's rise with younger generations and certain subcultures, gaming, obviously within crypto. But we need better places for these communications and things to happen. And this is really important, I think, for the long-term mainstream adoption, because now you've got to teach someone, as we've already said, all the different things about the cryptocurrency, but now they've got to download this new app called Discord, learn how to use it, try to figure out the difference between all the different scams going on. And that's a lot for someone to digest when they're just first getting into it. So it is a friction point, as well as it doesn't allow people to get into it, because if they keep hearing how people keep getting scammed and there's all these scammers in the space, it deters people from getting into it for fear that they might be someone that is scammed. Now, the sixth point, which I've also kind of touched on a little bit, is this custodial versus non-custodial wallet. And obviously it's a challenge trying to figure those things out, but there's also the issue of people losing and forgetting passwords, right? And so there is value in custodial wallets because that's how most people think. Whenever you lose a password or you forget something or an email address changes, you can just go to any company, Facebook, Amazon, Walmart.com, like Slack, whatever you're using, and you can click forgot password and you can figure things out. But it doesn't work that way. And if people don't understand the difference between custodial and non-custodial wallets, one, there's a limit in terms of what you can buy, because most custodial wallets today, you can't purchase NFTs or hold NFTs in them. When it comes to non-custodial wallets, then you have the responsibility to not lose things, to not forget a password, to not get phished, to not get scammed, and all these other kind of problems that we talked about. So there's an extra layer of responsibility that not everyone necessarily is ready for. And I was just at New York FinTech Week, and this was something that came up, that a lot of people have bad password hygiene, which I think is pretty obvious. And you don't necessarily want to put really, really expensive, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of these assets, NFTs, cryptocurrency, into a non-custodial wallet with someone that has bad password hygiene and may just lose it. And that is a problem for mainstream adoption, because no one wants to go spend a ton of money and then not be able to access that thing that they spent a bunch of money on if the value is going up or if the value is going down. And so that is a definite barrier for mainstream adoption. All right, and the seventh is an interesting one. It's regulation. Now, before you put your spin on this, pro, against, let's be realistic. There are benefits to regulation. There's also downsides to regulation. Regulation needs to be smart in the way that it protects consumers, it allows innovation to occur, and provides kind of a framework for people to abide by. There are a lot of NFT projects that are getting into securities territories, and they're going to end up in a lot of trouble. That is going to be a problem. And so having regulation that clearly defines certain barriers or limits can actually help innovation. And I'm going to use a very interesting example here. Dr. Seuss wrote Cat in the Hat. And do you know how he wrote that? I believe it was 500 words. Might have been even less. But essentially someone bet him that he couldn't write a book in 500 words, and out came The Cat in the Hat. So there's limitations on what you can do. There's sort of a framework. And that's what we need, are smart regulations that don't shut everything down, but provide a framework for entrepreneurs, artists, and people in the space to, one, better protect them, to understand what the kind of lanes are that you're allowed to play in, and also give concern to people that are wanting to get into this very unregulated space. For mainstream adoption, having some regulation, some rules and framework is helpful in order to feel confident and comfortable working with companies that you've never heard of for the first time and kind of operate in this space that has this certain stigma about, like, no government regulation, decentralization, and again, not arguing for or against either of these things, but just the reality of perception. So that is a barrier to mainstream adoption, is that there's a lack of regulation that also allows some of the scammers and things like that to breed and have free reign. So it's important that there's majority of the people in the NFT space, I believe, are good actors in trying to create cool things. A lot of the projects will go to zero because, just like anything new, people are testing and trying and all that sort of thing. But there is a segment of people that are not in it for the right reasons, so to speak. So that is another barrier to mainstream adoption. And seeing lawsuits and things like that come out against various different companies doesn't help with that. So if we had some just basic regulation, smart regulation that gave some basic frameworks for people to abide by, that would help increase mainstream adoption. So those are the 7 things holding NFTs back from mainstream adoption. If you think that I missed something or I'm wrong, feel free to drop it in the comments. I'm learning about all this stuff. These are the things that I see, that I've experienced myself and I've heard other people talk about. But that doesn't mean that I'm the single source of truth. So I would love to understand a little bit more about what you're seeing. If you think there are other barriers, or if you think I'm wrong, call me out. I'm cool with that. But I do believe in NFTs in the long term, and I am bullish. I've had a great experience with a VFriend and see how that project is a little different than some of the others, because those don't speak to me, right? A Bored Ape Yacht Club is cool. It goes up in value, but I would never be able to predict that. There's no tangible value. And I'm kind of from that long-term value investing. I'm really boring when it comes to stocks and investing and real estate. So to me, it's important to have some of these other different use cases to bring folks like me in, because I'm really interested in this space, but I have no way to evaluate it. I think if we can get other folks, not just folks like me, but a lot of other people in the mainstream in these different pockets of community, you start to see the entire ecosystem grow, scale. You'll see more cool use cases. and there'll be even more buzz that will make the early entrants into NFTs worth more and an advantage because they understand this space better. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course, host of Silicon Alley. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you are not subscribed already, and you can follow me on social media if you want. Hit the thumbs up if you liked this video. Thanks so much for listening, and again, I'd love to hear your thoughts.